Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is Thursday, March 19th. It is so good to be here with you. I like these evening streams, discuss what's happening, mostly about the Iranian war, but we could discuss other stuff too. I got my margarita in a can. That's what I drink. It's just my treat at night. And someone says, "Why do you always get up, Paul? Do you have have to go pee?" I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes I do have to go pee." Someone in the chat said, "Oh, do you have a large prostate?" Yes, it's about the size of a basketball. It's huge. So yeah, I have to go pee sometimes. We'll see. We'll see if I can make it through without having to take a quick break. But I go quick. The bathroom's just across the hall here, so we're all set. And thank you for being here. And a couple of just housekeeping things. I got to make sure everything's working on Rumble first. Rumble is working. All right. And let me make sure everything is going good on X. Good. Yeah, X is, they fixed the issue with the X, I guess, in StreamYard. So I don't have to start it manually. So I think we're all good to go. And as always, I will check the chat in case there's a problem with the sound or something. People like Marcus P. or Scott James, I will look for you to tell me if the sound is bad. Yesterday it was pretty good. I think I fixed it, but just give me a heads up if I don't. Because, I could go on a whole monologue, be on mute, or it sounds like I'm underwater or something like that. So hopefully everything sounds okay today. And yeah, BB, is he alive or not? I think he is alive. I think he's hiding like a rat underground because they're trying. Israel's strategy is to assassinate people. That's what they do best. And you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And BB, I think, is hiding, but all his appearances have been mostly virtual or AI. He had a press conference today that we'll take a look at, but it was virtual. There were no reporters there. And some people saying it was AI. I don't know. I don't even know what's in real anymore. Even in real life, is it all AI? Is our whole universe just AI? Maybe so. It makes it tough. I try to get good sources. It's hard because sometimes I see oh, look at this. Here's a dramatic footage of a, say, oil refinery burning. Sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's AI. So I try to avoid the AI, but it's really, really tough. So we'll go forward through that. We'll discuss all that. A lot of stuff to discuss today. A lot of things happen today. And as a reminder, if you want to get involved with the show, it helps make it better. There's Powerchats. I already got a Power Chat from Kim. He's a guy that lives in Finland. I'd love to meet Kim someday in real life. At the link below, and YouTube has SuperChats, and Rumble has what they call Rants. So I'll be looking at those. I always like to get tips. If you enjoy the show and want to give a tip, I really do appreciate it. And Kim, I'll just start out with a Power Chat with him. He said the best way to understand the situation in the Middle East is listen to Colonel Douglas McGregor. I've listened to that guy. He's good. One doesn't have to invent the wheel twice. Everything this man says makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of pretty good commentators out there that are pretty reasonable. I try to look at people that seem pretty level-headed and are accurate. I don't really go for the Alex Jones types. Nothing against Alex Jones. This is World War IV. Every time there's a military conflict, he calls it a world war. Now, this may end up a world war, but it's not now, right? It's like when we captured the leader of Venezuela. It's World War III or World War IV. I'm like, no, it isn't, Alex. No, it isn't. Calm down. I get why he does that because it drives engagement, but it's cringy. So I don't want to do that. So I try to get information from people that seem pretty reasonable. The trouble is governments always lie and news media lies too. Mainstream does. So it's tough to get information. But independent media, while there could be stuff that's not true, I think it's more accurate than the government media like CNN or CBS. They're basically government media. So, we do the best we can, but he is a good source. And so, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of good people out there. And not only about this conflict, but he also talks about the Ukraine-Russia conflict. That's really helped me because I was able to see all the propaganda at the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war about, oh, all the Russians are dying, they're all they're about to collapse. Well, that hasn't happened. And if you watched people that understood the situation, they explained it better. So, yeah, thank you for that. And let's see here. We'll just get started here. Anyone else video froze? I hope my video's not frozen. I seem to be okay. Purple is a fine color for a wall. Yeah, when I moved in, it was purple. I like it okay. It's different type of colors in here. Let's see here. Let's see here. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the stuff that has been happening. One of the things I want to do before I get into the specific stories is try to give a little balance to everything. I know there's been a lot of people, oh, this is Armageddon. We're not going to have any oil. It's all collapsing. It's going to be $200, $300, $500 a barrel. Well, it can't get that expensive, just because at a certain point, you get what you call demand destruction. And what that is, the price of any commodity is based on supply and demand, obviously, right? And if the demand goes down, the price goes down. And so if the price it gets too high, the demand will reduce because people can't afford the oil, and then that push pressure on the price to go down. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing, because that would mean airlines aren't flying, factories are closing. But if that should happen, that would then force the price of oil lower. Another thing I want to keep in mind is the United States. We are the biggest exporter of oil. We have huge amount of oil in this country. The Texan Basin, North Dakota, there's Alaska. We have a lot of oil. So worst case scenario, let's say if all the oil in the Middle East was gone, we could still be okay. Now, it caused other problems, but we're self-sufficient. So don't get all panicky that we're not going to have oil. Right now, if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, it's about 30% of the world's oil supply and liquid natural gas. And that's significant. But you have to remember, it's not like totally closed, because Iran, they're sending their ships through. So they go through the Strait of Hormuz, and they're letting their ships, tankers, go through, obviously. So that's oil. And typically, that oil is going to China. China, when they have tankers, they're able to get through too. So it's not like 100% closed. It's close to the United States and to countries that are giving assistance to the United States or Israel. So that puts it in perspective. And then a lot of other countries have a lot of oil too, like Russia. And one of the things Trump did, which is kind of funny, we put all these sanctions on Russia. Evil Putin, we're going to make it so no one can buy your oil. And now we're like, oh, please, Putin, sell your oil on the market. We want to keep the oil price down. So Trump has removed the sanctions on Russian oil. That's got to piss off Zelensky in Europe, I bet. So no more sanctions on Russian oil. So that oil is hitting the market. And I think they're trying to get the Venezuelan oil to the market. So there's been a lot of other additional sources coming online. And that's why so far we haven't seen a total catastrophe yet in the oil prices. I mean, it may happen. I'm not saying that the price won't go up, but the last I saw was like at least West Texas oil, about 94. Brent, West Texas, that's the oil in the United States. And Brent oil, that's like mostly from like the North Seas and near Britain. It's about 111. I don't know, it varies. So the point is, it hasn't gone too crazy yet. And we haven't seen like a total collapse in the stock market or anything like that. Yeah, it's been down, but it hasn't been a total implosion. So I'm not going to go Alex Jones on here saying that when you go to the gas station tomorrow, it'll be $100 a gallon. It won't. It may go up, but there's ways they can reduce the impact. Now, the longer the Strait of Hormuz stays closed, the bigger the impact it will be, because that means there's less oil on the market. And if you have a shortage or a supply not as great as it once was, and people are bidding on the oil, it goes up if the demand stays the same. So it is an issue. It's a serious issue, but don't look at it as a doomsday event. It isn't. Again, because we in the United States, we have enough oil for ourselves. We don't have to get oil from anyone. So, I mean, if we wanted to, we could just cut off all exports. Now, countries like Japan, Philippines, and a lot of these countries have really depended upon Gulf oil, and they're hurting now. But even they have alternatives. Like Japan now, they are now buying Russian oil. Beforehand, they were following the sanctions and not buying that oil. So this higher price has actually been good for Russia and Putin because they're getting a lot of money now. And a lot of countries are having to adjust. Now, Europe could be really fucked because, especially with LNG, natural gas, they used to get really cheap natural gas from Russia. But because of all the hysteria about the Ukrainian-Russian war, they cut that off. And they were getting a lot of their natural gas from Qatar, which is in the Gulf region, and the United States. We sell them liquid LNG, liquefied natural gas. It's expensive, but those are those two sources. But now they've lost the Gulf states, so they're dependent on the United States. And if we as the United States should say, hey, there's an energy crisis, we're keeping all the LNG, all the natural gas and oil. Europe, you're not getting any. Europe would be in a lot of trouble because they want to have any. So Europe has a lot of problems with the energy. And so Europe is much more vulnerable than the United States. So I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's how it is. So just keep that in perspective. The reason things haven't gone too crazy yet. And I think Trump is trying to desperately, I mean, it's obvious. Trump is trying to keep the oil prices down as low as possible. He's released our strategic oil reserves. I think Europe has done the same. He's allowed Russians to sell their oil. There's a Venezuelan oil, and they've been doing a lot of things to try to get the supply out. And Trump was really pissed off when Israel attacked the Iranian natural gas field, and then Iran retaliated against Qatar and Kuwait and those refineries. And that really pissed off Trump. And he said that, no, Netanyahu, he didn't tell me he was going to do that. So supposedly he told Israel not to do that anymore. We'll see. I think Israel's really running the show. But Trump is desperate to try to not make this an energy war because Iran could really screw a lot of things up. So I don't see many more attacks on Iranian oil facilities. We never did. Israel did. They attacked, you remember, the oil refineries near Tehran, created that environmental disaster. Because that's how Israel rolls, right? They don't give a shit. They just massacre people and do shit. And Trump was pissed about that. Then they attacked the natural gas fields. Trump was pissed about that. He told them to stop it because Iran retaliates. So that's where we are now. And the Iranian tankers that go through the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, theoretically, we could sink them, and that would hurt Iran because they wouldn't be able to sell their oil. But we're not doing that because we know that would create a greater crisis in the oil price. So I think Trump is doing everything in his power to try to keep oil prices somewhat reasonable. We will see, the longer we go on in this process, the more problems it's going to create with the energy market. So we got a serious situation out. I don't want to downplay it. But at the same time, I want to be balanced. It's not catastrophic yet. It's not like you're not going to be able to get gasoline at the pump, at least in America. That's not going to happen, I don't think, period. Because, again, we have plenty of oil here. It may be more expensive, especially if other countries are trying to buy it, but it won't be a total shutdown. So that's the situation on that. Now, Iran is continuing tonight. This is just Israel has been pummeled all night based on my accounts of alerts and reports of landings from open sources. The number increased tonight. This is a guy, I think he's in Israel. Yeah, he's or there. And my WhatsApp group were filled with people having breakdowns after not sleeping for 2 weeks. So Iran is hitting hard again. Israel, there was some spectacular footage of fires, but I'm not going to show it because I don't know if it's real, with AI and everything. But they are getting hit hard. So this shows that Iran, they still have plenty of missiles and drones. And a couple of things. Either, first of all, that despite what Trump says and what Pete Hegseth says, they could say they've been totally destroyed. They're 100% military wiped out. But that doesn't make any sense because every night Iran's attacking. So what's up? So obviously it exists. And I think the Iranians, they have underground missiles and they have more than we realized. They are not wiped out. So that's number one. But then number two, they're hitting. So the question is why are the missiles hitting? Why aren't our Patriot defense or the Iron Dome shooting down these missiles? There's a couple possibilities. One possibility, which the Pentagon warned Trump before the war, is our interceptors, Patriot missile interceptors, have been depleted. It doesn't mean we're totally out, but we've sent so many to Zelensky in that stupid war. And then last year with the first war with Iran, that 12-day bit thing, Israel pissed away a lot. And then we have to have Patriots for like Taiwan and overseas and everywhere else. So they're very expensive and we have a limited supply. Yeah, we can make new Patriots, but it's a slow process. It's not like we can mass produce them. So that's the problem. And so we have an issue right now. So either Israel, they lack interceptors, or probably the more disturbing possibility, and I think this is the case, is Patriot missiles are not very effective against advanced missiles. And I lean to that. I think both are true. We're lacking interceptors, but also the interceptors we have, they can attack more of the older models of missiles, but the newer hypersonic missiles and sophisticated missiles, they don't have a good track record with. And we know that not just from the Iranian war, but from the war in Ukraine and Russia. Kiev is just being pummeled, by Russia every night, and they're not being able to shoot down the missiles. So the Patriot batteries are somewhat not what they are advertised. And then to add to the problem, some of our expensive radar that costs $1 billion a piece, the THAADs, they were destroyed by Iran in the first wave. So there's a lot of things going on there. And that's the situation there. So there are more attacks tonight. All right. Getting to Netanyahu, he did have a press conference, but it was virtual. And there was no reporters there in the room. It just, that's why people are thinking, is this real or is it AI? I think it's probably real, but he kept it virtual because he's scared of being assassinated by the Iranians. So he's hiding. I think that's probably the most likely thing that's happening right now. All right. Let's just take a look here at what Netanyahu said, because he's kind of running the war here. Netanyahu, he made a comment that Benjamin Netanyahu says airstrikes alone are not enough to create regime change in Iran. Well, that's true. That's what I've been saying forever. That's what a lot of experts have been saying. There's never been a case where just bombing the hell out of a country has caused regime change. You always have to invade with troops. And so I don't know why Trump thought that, we'd do a quick bombing over the weekend. What was it, 19 days ago, 20 days ago? And then all the people would rise up and there'd be, I don't know, some gay guy that loves Israel. That didn't happen. It was never going to happen. So he is saying a ground component will be necessary. And the question is, what kind of ground component are they talking about? We are sending Marines over. I think there's like 5,000. At first it's 2,500, then 5,000. That's not many, though. You have to understand Iran has about 1 million man army. And again, they still obviously have a lot of missiles and drones, and that could be very difficult proposition depending on what you want to do. And I think a lot of people are thinking they might be used in an attempt to take the Strait of Hormuz, so we can control that. But again, that's a very mountainous region with a lot of caves. I assume that the Iranians have really dug in there and have prepared it well. It'd be very difficult with just 5,000 men to take that. It could be a bloodbath just trying to do that. So I'm not sure if that's going to be realistic, but I think Trump is getting desperate. It's definitely not enough men to march to Tehran. If we wanted to totally overthrow Iran, we would need probably a 1 million-man army, which we don't have. So we'd have to implement the draft, train a bunch of men, and then it would take a long time to set up the logistics, to send them over there, get a staging area. And nothing is secret now, like the Iraq war, because the Iranians, they get satellite information from China and Russia, so they know exactly where all the troops are in the ships. It would be very, very difficult proposition. But if you want to do regime change, and that was the purpose of the war, was to overthrow the government, to put a government in that's friendly to Israel, so Israel can continue to expand and get their greater Israel. There would have to be regime change here. Then here is an interesting. Let me just take a look at this stuff here, and it's good to see all you guys. The gay of Hormuz. Yeah, there'll be no regime change. Yeah, I doubt that there will be regime change. So I'm just going through here, checking here, make sure I got everything. I already got a super chat. Hey, this is the Doc 3181. Hi, Rams. I really enjoy your daily shows. Keep it up. Okay, I will. Big respect from Paul, Sheffield, UK. Hey, another Paul. I would love to go back to the UK, but I'd probably be arrested. So I don't know. My heritage is Scottish and English, so that's kind of like my ethno state, my homeland. I miss that. That's for sure. Anonymous, would have you voted for Kamala? I wager we still be in Iran, plus have a lot of men and drag here and flooded borders. No, I will not. I would not vote for Kamala. My position is pretty clear now, which will translate I probably won't vote. I'm not going to vote for anyone that's anti-white, number one. So Kamala's anti-white. So there you go. And I don't think women should be leaders or in politics in general. So no, I want to vote for Kamala. But my other criteria now is anyone that gets foreign money, like from APAC, and APAC, I know they try to do a little clever loophole. It's not foreign. Stop fooling me. They're the tool of Israel. Fuck you. I'm not voting for you. So you take money from Israel. I'm not voting for you. That's like 87% of Congress. Or if you're anti-white, I'm not voting for you. And so I guess I could vote for like Thomas Massey or something. That's just the way it is there. So no, I'm not gonna. I won't support Kamala. Just because I'm upset with Trump doesn't mean now that I'm a fan of the Democrats or anything like that. And did you see this? This kind of reminded me, since you brought up about this. This isn't about Iran, but it's another betrayal from Trump, and we've already seen this, but here we go again. The Wall Street Journal, Trump has privately told his inner circle that some of his administration deportation policies have gone too far. This guy has, I think, deported fewer people than Biden, and he said he's gone too far. Total betrayal of everything Bush of Trump said he stood for. So no, I'm not going to reward that by voting for someone like that. Just horrible. So there we go. Donald Trump. Now it's not going to deport people, and we're fighting wars for Israel. Great. All right, let's look at this clip. I don't know if this is AI or really him. He was. It was virtual. He wasn't there. There's no reporters there.
Well, history proves that, unfortunately and unhappily, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan.
Oh, Genghis Khan. Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan.
Because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. Aggression will overcome moderation. So you have no choice. If you look at the world as it is today, you have to be blind not to see that the democracies led by the United States have to reassert their will to defend themselves and to oppose their enemies in time while there's still time, before the jarring gong of danger wakes them up and wakes them up.
So, one of the things to understand, first of all, he hates Jesus. Obviously, he rejects him, and but Judaism is not equivalent to Christianity. So this whole idea of Judeo-Christian doesn't make a lot of sense. It'd be like saying, I'm a Satanist Christian, right? That wouldn't make sense. I'm a Satanist Christian, the Satan Christian Coalition. What? They're fundamentally opposite. And Jesus is fundamentally is a fulfillment. It came out of Judaism, but it was a rejection of the old way and brought in a new covenant. That's what Christians believe. And whereas Judaism is a very ethnocentric religion, very violent in its nature. If you look in the Old Testament, kill your enemy. They have different standards for themselves versus others. So among other Jews, you shouldn't lie or cheat or steal. But when it's the outsiders, that's okay to do. There's a different standard, whereas Christianity is more universal. So we have this idea, for example, when we are a Christian nation, is we fight wars in a certain way. For example, we don't torture prisoners, we don't rape them like Israel does. We have a certain standard. We don't slaughter civilians intentionally. But again, that's a Christian concept. And I would argue the United States, the government anymore, is no longer Christian, it's Jewish spiritually. I mean, they may call them, like Ted Cruz may call himself Christian, but he's spiritually Jewish. And same with Tom Cotton and Lindsey Graham. So it's very different. So they have a very different view of how they look at the world. And we've always just assumed everyone else in the world has like a Christian mindset, but that's always been a very small minority of the world. And Judaism is not that way at all. And Judaism rejects Christ and the teachings of Christ. So I don't know how you try to square the two together, because they don't. And again, it's not ethnic. Obviously, Jews, just like everyone else, can become Christians, but the Judaism religion is not equivalent to Christianity. It's just, in a sense, they're in a lot of ways opposite, right? Because Jews reject the Messiah. They're looking for another Messiah, which we believe will be the Antichrist. So it's just, I don't understand how people conflate the two. Judeo-Christian, that's like a contradiction. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You could either be Judeo or you could be Christian. You can't be both because they're fundamentally opposite. And some of the stuff that used to be like real unspoken, except in certain areas on the internet, is now just up front. Former White House Religious Liberty Commissioner Carrie Bowler said, I think we're an occupied nation. Would you say we're a Zionist occupied nation? I think a foreign country has occupied our government. Well, I think so too. I mean, it's just obvious. If you look how many people are getting APAC funds and what we're doing and what we've learned, I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. I think it's just pretty obvious when you look at it. But it's funny that she would put it in those words, right? But she did. And yeah, that's where we are now. according to Ted Cruz, saying Christ is king is anti-Semitic. Yeah, see, eventually, if Jesus said you can't serve two masters because you'll end up hating one and loving the other. So, and the apostle Paul said, who was Jewish, right, but he was a Christian. He said that the gospel is always an offense by itself, and Jesus said, if they hated me, they'll hate you. So you can't you can't try to have one foot in each camp, because invariably you'll end up hating Christianity. And that's where we see Ted Cruz doing, because by saying Christ is king, Christ was the king of the Jews and of everyone, that offends the Jews. So you got to make your stand. Are you going to stand with the truth and with Jesus and God? Or you're going to stand with the people that reject Jesus and God? That's your choice. You can't have it both ways. And if you try to do both, like people like Ted Cruz, you end up hating Jesus and Christianity. And that's why, really, I was surprised how far these Christian Zionists have become. I mean, I knew of them years ago, but they're just pretty much outwardly rejecting the teachings of Christ now. I showed you some clips. It's like, you're not Christian, right? If you see what they're saying, they don't believe in the Bible, New Testament message. So I'm not really surprised that has happened. That's obvious what will happen. So, but he sold out for his 30 pieces of silver or whatever, and I guess that's what he did. All right, now going into the war, this is an interesting issue that's happening here, because this is a background. For some reason, Trump, instead of using professional trained diplomats like most presidents use, Trump decided to use his golfing buddy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. It's really bizarre. But he used those two guys to negotiate with Russia and with Iran. And to complicate matters, because this is relevant, Steve Witkoff and Kushner are Jewish, and they're going to negotiate with Iran. That's not really like an independent party there, right? And so they had two negotiations, one last year with the Iranians, and in the middle of the negotiations, we tipped off Israel where their negotiators were, and Israel massacred the negotiators. And then this year, Iran decided, okay, we'll try it again. And they had proposals. You remember there was negotiations in Oman, and we gave a proposal, and Kushner and Witkoff said, okay, review it. We'll meet next week in Vienna. There was never any intention in meeting in Vienna. That was a ruse to give the Iranians a false sense of confidence that we were honorable people. We're not honorable people. We're no longer a Christian nation. So, but they thought we were honorable, even though we screwed them the first time. They were meeting, and then based on that information, we gave the information to Israel, and they assassinated the first Khamenei and his family and some of the leaders of the decapitation strike. A sneak attack, very dishonorable, because based on Western tradition, you declare war on a country before you attack them. You just don't engage in negotiations and then sucker punch them. But that's what we did twice. So now it's been reported that Trump wants an off-ramp, and he wants to have a ceasefire like last year. And like last year, he wants to declare victory, that this was the most glorious victory in American history, probably world history. The most, he's like Alexander the Great. So he wants to pull out and declare victory. But the problem is the Iranians, they're not engaged with us, because they're like, well, fuck you. You screwed us twice. How can we negotiate with you? And so that's kind of the background to this video here. Take a look at this.
On how this war ends. Finally, I want to just ask you about Iran's position on how this war ends. Of course, senior military officials in Iran have said that Iran is going to determine when the war ends. Yesterday, I reported that Steve Witkoff has been sending text messages to Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, and that the Iranian side had not responded to Witkoff's text messages. And I base this on sources in Tehran, in the Iranian government, that were telling me this. And they also said that messages had been sent through third-party countries trying to appeal to Iran to speak to the Americans and start discussing a ceasefire. The White House reacted very angrily to my report, and they denounced me. They called Dropsite News abhorrent, and they said that we are engaging in America last behavior, and they attacked us for interviewing Iranian officials. They then leaked their own spun version of the story to Barak Ravid of Axios, and they said the opposite is true, that actually Abbas Araghchi has been texting Steve Witkoff, and that the Americans don't want to talk to Iran right now, even though Trump has been saying the Iranians are begging. Then the foreign minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, publicly came out and said, I have not written to Steve Witkoff at all, and I haven't been in contact with him since his boss decided to launch this war in the middle of supposed negotiations.
So, yeah, I mean, we're ghosted. They ghosted us. We're like someone, oh, come on, text back, please text back. I believe that. I believe that the story he replied was true. The Iranians said, no, we have no interest in negotiating with the Americans because of how we screwed them. And I guarantee you Trump wants an off-ramp and declare victory. That's why Trump keeps saying that this is going to be over very soon. But as I said, and others have said, it's just not up to Trump anymore. It's easy to start a war. It really is. You can just decide to do it. But it's not always to end the war. If the other side is holding their own or even winning, what do? You can't just say, okay, I've had enough. Let's just have a ceasefire, because they could say no. And I guess we could, like I said, Trump could say, well, I don't care what the Iranians are going to do. Well, we're done. We're not going to attack anymore. We're calling the war over. But the Iranians could say, well, fuck you. We're still going to attack your bases because our demand is you pull your bases out. So any bases you have, we're going to bomb, and we're going to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed until you get rid of your bases, and we're going to continue to bomb Israel. So what does Trump do then? Try to ignore that? He can't. So we're in the problem area now. We're the ones trying to end this by trying to get a hold of Iran. And Iran, they feel, probably rightfully so, that if they have a ceasefire, this will be just our way to try to replenish our missile interceptors and try to recover. And then a year from now, we'll attack them again. So they're like, why should we do that? I don't think that's really likely, though. I think this war has gone so poorly that I don't think Trump would have the political capital to attack Iran again. But I don't know. And again, the Iranians, they are taking a lot of damage, and I think they would also eventually like to maybe end this. But right now, Iran doesn't look like they're too interested to end on the timetable of Trump is setting up. So it was interesting, though, how we're being ghosted by the Iranians. We're ghosted. They don't like us. So that is what is happening there. Okay, now this was funny because I'm always talking about, oh, hang on here. We got the wrong leak here. This is hilarious because it kind of reaffirms what I've always been saying. I always bring up Pearl Harbor, but let's just take a look at this. Trump met with the president or prime minister of Japan. Let's take a look at this. This is hilarious.
Too much. You know, when we go in, we went in very hard. And we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay? Right?
We brought up Pearl Harbor.
He's asking me, no, you believe in surprise, I think much more so than us. And we had to surprise him, and we did. And because of that surprise, we knocked out, the first 2 days, we probably knocked out 50% of what and much more than we anticipated doing. So if I go and tell everybody about it, there's no longer a surprise, right?
So Trump here, I mean, really awkward that Japanese woman hearing this was saying, well, it was a question by the Japanese, why didn't we announce this beforehand? Because again, typically you declare war first before you attack. And he said, well, we'd lose our sense of surprise. And what are you Japs thinking about? Remember Pearl Harbor? You did a sneak attack on us. So why are you asking that? We wanted to do a sneak attack. I mean, for years we condemned the Japanese for doing that sneak attack. And now Trump's like, yeah, that's a good thing. What are you bitching about, Japanese? That's what we did. It's just really crazy. All right. The big story, or a big story that came up today. Well, let me see here. I think I got a RAMZPAUL is a national treasure. Oh, thank you. I'm just a guy with a camera, really. Reggie La ZC3CC. I think a lot of MAGA are sticking with Trump because they're so emotionally invested in him. Admitting they've been duped would be too painful. Yeah, I've never been a cult personality cult guy. I like someone because of what they stand for, what they believe in. And I supported Trump not because I liked him on The Apprentice or something like that, or personally liked him. He can be funny, but that's not why I supported him. I supported him because of his policies, right? I mean, I personally, I think Bill Clinton's kind of funny and charming, but I didn't support his policies. Trump, I supported his policies, at least what he promised us. And now he's double-crossed us. So it's kind of crazy. And CNN, if you saw, there was a poll out that 100% of MAGA support this war. Well, a lot of people say, how is that? Well, it's kind of circular logic. It'd be like you do a poll of vegetarians and ask vegetarians, how many of you support not eating meat? Okay, so are you a vegetarian? You are? Okay, do you support not eating meat? Hey, 100% of vegetarians support not eating meat. Well, that's kind of the definition. And Trump has defined MAGA as blind belief in whatever he says. So if today he's like against abortion, you got to support him. But if tomorrow he's fine with 9-month abortions, I'm not saying he is have this position, but there's some, let's say if he even did have that position, they would still be fine because they don't really care. They just care about whatever he is. It's a very cult. And at that point, it is a cult. I've never been a guy that's been a cult type follower. So there's a lot of people that are into that. But I can't see how anyone would support him on if you're basing it on positions, because he's violated all his positions, at least the big ones. So I don't know. That's kind of my take on that. But there could be some emotional stuff in there too. So we'll see. All right. And all right. Okay. So anyways, his talk with the Japanese, that was pretty funny. All right, here we go. This is a big story, and this did happen. It's been confirmed. An F-35, a stealth fighter, each one of these costs about $120 million, I think. They're supposed to be hidden. That radar can't see them. But the Iranians, they have the technology. I think this is based on heat. They were able to, from the thermal, because these planes are hot, they shot one plane down for sure. It was able to land, but it's severely damaged. Thankfully, the pilot wasn't killed. But this is huge. And it's funny because Trump is saying that all of Iran's air defense has been destroyed. And on the day today, he said that we lost two, not just one, but potentially two F-35s. They're talking now that a another F-35 was shot down too. So Iran, they look like they have the technologies to counter these very expensive stealth planes. This is a problem for America because we're running out of, typically how we're started this war is using long distance missiles where the planes fly like to the border of Iran. They try to keep out of the air defense and they shoot a missile that goes like 200 kilometers. But as we're running low on those, we want to use gravity bombs. Gravity bombs when you just fly over and drop a bomb. But that's risk because you could potentially be shot down. And we always assume that the F-35s can't be shot down because they can't be seen on radar. But obviously that is no longer true. And this is just showing how behind the times America is with how war has changed. We're still living in the 20th century, fighter jets, aircraft carriers, that type of thing, tanks. As we learned in the war with Ukraine and Russia, everything's changed. Ukraine had to make a lot of changes, so did Russia. Tanks don't work very well anymore. You can't have large concentration of troops because they're picked up by satellite quickly, and drones can be sent to wipe them out. It's a very, very difficult time for battle now. And the battlefield is dominated not by aircraft, but by drones and air defense and that type of thing. And so, and missiles. And one of the things that the Iranians did, I don't think they had a choice, but they realized they couldn't compete by building aircraft carriers and stuff like that, or stealth planes. So they put all their technology into drones and missiles, which I still stand. They probably have the state-of-the-art drones and missiles, and with hypersonic missiles and sophisticated drones. And drones, I think, are going to be the wave of the future instead of these real expensive planes. Like, what's the purpose of having what's the purpose of having an F-35? There is no purpose. I mean, you want to fly over so you can't be seen and drop a bomb, but why not just use a bunch of drones to do that? Why have a plane manned by a human? It doesn't make sense, really. And we're starting to see that. And again, it's just not this war. I've been following the war in Ukraine, and on both sides, they're not really using the fighter jets much like they did in World War II or even World War I. There's like no dogfights, or the planes aren't coming close to the source of the conflict. The Russian jets, they're staying way back and they're just launching missiles from afar. Remember those F-16s we gave Ukraine? They're not up front fighting. They're staying way back and they're being used to try to shoot down drones. So the technology has really changed. The nature of warfare has changed, and the United States has not adapted. So we have these aircraft carriers that I don't think are very valuable anymore. In fact, they're hiding from the Iranians. They're like sitting ducks. And these planes, when they're very expensive and they can be shot down, where the Iranians have a lot of cheap drones and they got missile technology. So things have really changed a lot there. Concerning the cope that America was doing, that, well, Iran, they're losing because they're running out of missiles, because on the first day of the war, they shot a lot of missiles at our bases in Israel, and then it's slowed down. So they're obviously running out of missiles, but that's not necessarily the case. If you look at the graph, it started really high, but now it's increased again. And Iran shared their strategy. It's not secret. At the start of the war, they fired off a lot of their old rockets, their old inventory, their old missiles that aren't as sophisticated, in order to basically deplete the air defense of Israel and the United States bases. And so we shoot off all our Patriot interceptors. And once they're depleted, then Iran, they're firing off their more sophisticated missiles. And that's what they're doing now. And they're actually starting to increase the waves of attacks. So what Trump and Pete Hegseth, they made the assumption, when the war started, Iran was shooting off all these missiles, then it really went down. So that means they're running out of missiles, but that's not the case at all. It looks like, I don't think it is anyway. more than likely what they are doing is planning for a long war. Supposedly, Iran's got tens of thousands of these missiles they made over the years underground. And what they're doing is they're saving them. I mean, so they've been shooting like 30 to 50 a day. So they're not trying to shoot them all at once. And then they escalate when they need to. Like the other day, they escalated because Israel assassinated one of their key officials, and then Israel bombed their oil or natural gas field. And then so Iran, they escalated their missile attacks. So Trump is just lying, or he's stupid, or he's not getting the information. Iran, they still are a military power. They're still fighting back hard. And I know Trump, I think it's a couple of things. And I've been trying to figure out why he does this. And part of this is, I think, his personality, being like a salesman or marketing. You always want to try to exaggerate a little bit, like, oh, I'm going to make a casino. It's going to be the best ever. I made the Trump casino. It's the most iconic casino ever to be made. And that's an exaggeration, but he's always done that. So he's kind of loose with the truth, trying to market it, try to put a positive spin on things in order to try to make the sale, right? And you exaggerate. And so I think Trump naturally does that all the time. So he goes to the American people and tries to exaggerate. This is the best victory ever. We totally wiped them all out 100%. We took hardly any losses. This is a glorious victory. Everyone around is saying how wonderful I am. So he's exaggerating in order to try to make that happen. But that doesn't always work. And what can happen, you lose your credibility. So that's one reason he just naturally has that salesman side to him. He's always had. But I think it's a little bit more dangerous now, because what happened now is, especially since he was almost assassinated, he surrounded himself with people that are very big yes men, and they just tell him what he wants to hear. And they're telling them, especially these Christian Zionists, that God has a special plan for him. And he's like David, or he's kind of like a Messiah figure to bring peace in the world. And so he's fallen victim into believing this bullshit. And supposedly it's been reported to Susie Wiles, the chief of staff. She tells everyone he doesn't like negative news, so don't say negative things. Even if it's true, he doesn't want to hear the truth. He just wants to hear good news. And of course, this isn't new to Trump. This has been typical of leaders in the past, kings and so forth. They can get into the mode, kill the messenger, shoot the messenger. You only want good news. You don't want reality. You just want to be told good things. So I think part of the problem is Trump has been told a lot of bullshit that's not true. And that's adding to it. And then finally, he turns 80 pretty soon, in a few months. And most people, when they turn 80, they start to lose some of their mental faculties. It's just the way it is. I'm not saying he's senile, but he's not as quick as he used to be. That's why, like, old people are susceptible to scams, because they're more trusting, or they're easier manipulated. So I think Trump is getting old. He is old. He's an old man, 80 years old this year. And I think he's surrounded by people that are manipulating him. Plus, he's had always this personality that he's Trump. Everything's going to work out good because he's Trump. And he doesn't want people to bring him negative news that, maybe Iran isn't going to, like, before the war, he got mad when the general said, we can't guarantee you just because we kill their leaders, there's going to be a regime change. And he didn't like that. He considers that's kind of like, oh, that's a defeatist attitude. We got to think positive here. So that creates problems. And I think that's part of the issue right now with that. And so he oversells things like Iran's been 100% eliminated. But then he looks foolish when every night Iran is escalating their attacks. And today he said, they don't have any air defense. And on this day, he said that they don't have any air defense. They were the first country to be able to shoot down a 5th generation stealth fighter. 2 of them, supposedly, they shot down. And that's huge. And so obviously the reality is not matching up to what Trump is saying. And I think most Americans would like a president just to be honest with the American people and not try to bullshit. But Trump, his whole life, he's been a bullshitter. That's kind of his marketing type of stuff. And while that can work if you're like a salesman selling steaks or vodka or casinos, it's not necessarily a good trait in a president that has to see reality. So I think that is one of those things that are happening. And at this point, I consider the Iranian government probably to be more truthful than the American government, because you can only lie so long and then people just tune out. That happened during the Vietnam War. The United States government lost credibility. You know, oh, the light at the end of the tunnel, the North Vietnamese are almost defeated. Then there was the Tet Offensive. And so that is the problem. All right. So Trump, he says stuff that's contradictory, and he assumes that we don't understand this. But here's one of those here. Breaking: Trump asked Congress for another $200 billion for Iran war. But why is Trump asking for this if he says this is just a small excursion and we've already won? Every day it's become a joke. Trump meets the press and he tells the press that we've already won and all of Iran's military, everything has been defeated. And then if that's the case, why is he asking more money for a war that he claims is not a war and the enemy's defeated? It just doesn't have any internal logic. And even I would think stupid people would say, well, this doesn't make a lot of sense. And that is what is happening here. However, earlier today, Iran has hit again, and they've hit the Clash report's pretty accurate. They hit the Haifa refinery, is Israel's largest and most critical fuel facility. Supplies about 50 to 60% of the country's fuel, and it was hit and on fire because, again, of Iranian attacks. And again, these missiles got through. The Iron Dome, the Patriot missiles didn't shoot them through. It looks like everything now is getting through. Either they're out of interceptors or the interceptors do not work with the new missiles that Iran is using. All right. Some of the issues, Qatar is so upset because of the attack, because Israel, supposedly to Trump didn't know that Israel was going to attack the Iranian natural gas field. And in response to that, Iran, they attacked Qatar's field. And Trump said he got mad. He didn't know that. Israel did that on their own. I think what happened is that some Americans knew, but Trump probably himself didn't know. I'm sure. I doubt Israelis just did it in isolation. Probably some of Trump's staff knew of it, but didn't tell Trump. And Trump was really mad about that because it could create huge problems. And it's creating a huge problem with Qatar because they have one of the largest natural gas facilities. And they're saying now that much of the damage to the facility is irreparable. And that means it's not going to be a quick fix. They need to bring that up again. And they're talking about some of these facilities, it may be 10 years before they can rebuild them. And so that's going to screw Qatar, which depends on this. It's going to create natural gas is going to be now more expensive around the world, especially for Europe, but everywhere because there's going to be less of it. And so Qatar's really pissed at Trump because they give Trump a lot of money too. They're one of the Gulf states that we prop up in exchange. They demand dollars, and they're it. All right. I got one from Chief. $5 on a power chat. I did over 20 years in the Navy. During that time, underwear, LOVKX, metal utensils, brown paper towels were flushed and disabled in the sewer system. Nothing new. Fires also happen all the time. It's a floating city complete with ghettos. Yeah, Thank you, Chief. I knew a guy that was on the aircraft carrier for years. He retired, and he was saying like the women that were running a brothel on this carrier, and that's part of the reason he got out of the Navy. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people, let's just not romanticize it. A lot of the people in the Navy, they're not there to necessarily defend America. Some of these people are minorities. It's a jobs program, and they don't really want to be put in harm's way, especially for another country like Israel. And so, yeah, there's a lot of issues. And to be fair, the Gerald Ford's been at sea for 10 months. Is there? I've never, been part of an aircraft carrier, but my understanding every 6 months it needs to come back to port and have maintenance. So it's like overdue. The sailors have been on the ship really long. And I've been on an aircraft carrier when I was in high school. I was in a jazz band and we got a tour in San Diego. I think it was the Enterprise. And I went down inside the carrier, and it's not like a cruise ship. It's really cramped and there's a lot of pipes overhead, and you'd get claustrophobic at a time, living there. And so, yeah. So there was a fire on the forward ship that turned out it was very extensive. It took them many days to take control of the fire. It destroyed like 600 bunks. And so a lot of the sailors were having to sleep on the floor. So I think the Gerald Ford went out of commission and went to Crete to try to get repairs. Some people are saying that's a conspiracy. Really, what happened is they were attacked by Iranian drones or whatever. I don't know. I would have said no, but I don't trust our government anymore. I doubt it though. Probably some of the sailors would leak it eventually what happened. So it probably was just to screw up on the ship. So anyway, thank you for that. Yeah, it's not a glamorous life on an aircraft carrier, that's for sure. And let's see here. But thank you for that super chat. KMAX, Rams, when they claim MAGA is 100% backing Trump still, is this like North Korean leader saying that he wins with 99.93% of the vote? I think a lot of former Trump voters feel like you do. I think it's in the definitions. So if you define MAGA as, Trump has said this. Trump has said MAGA is whatever I say it is. So if he changes his position and you're MAGA, you got to change your position. So if you were opposed to abortion because Trump was, and you're all on board, but then tomorrow he's like, oh, I'm pro-choice now. And then you have to change your position if you're MAGA to align with whatever Trump says. And Trump changes his mind like on a daily basis. So you just have to do that. If you're happy to live that way, I'm not, but some people I guess are. But that's what it means to be MAGA. Trump says so. I didn't say so. Trump says so. So, of course, if you define it like that, people that are MAGA, you define MAGA as believing in whatever Trump does, supporting whatever Trump does. By definition, 100% of people are going to support the war in Iran because Trump supports it. Now, if tomorrow Trump said, let's say, oh, this war was a stupid idea, I never wanted to get into it, anyone that supported this war was a retard, all the MAGA people they'd be on board with that. They're fine. And just like Trump says he doesn't want to deport people now these MAGA people, they're fine with that. Whatever Trump says, because MAGA's defined and believe in whatever Trump is. So it's kind of it's like the vegetarian example I said. It doesn't really mean a lot. So MAGA, the people that identify as MAGA, that is a lot fewer people now too. So I think that is part of what's the issue there. And there's a lot of people that, don't get me wrong, that do support this war. Especially, they did the breakdown. This is more of an older boomer thing. And they, kick ass, those damn terrorists. That's how they think of things. So they're not very sophisticated. So, yeah, I mean, there are people that really support this. And you have the Christian Zionists that think this may bring back Jesus and God blesses those who bless Israel. So there are people that support it. I'm not trying to say there aren't, but I definitely don't. And for example, I'm no longer MAGA because I don't support the concept of keeping illegals here that Trump does now. He's not going to deport. I don't support the concept of starting foreign wars for Israel. So, yeah. Art the Clown. I'm not simping, but I really enjoy your live streams about the war. I look forward to it. I also like your X posts. Oh, thank you. I've been enjoying this too. I like being with you guys and just kind of kvetching about all this. So that's where we are right now. All right. Okay, part of the problem, like I said, this is a serious energy problem we have. But at the same time, as at the beginning of the show, I try to calm people down. It's not catastrophic. It's not like the United States is not going to have oil or natural gas. We have more than we can use. We export it. But it is a problem. It'll increase prices because there's less of it. But the Iran's attacks on Qatar, to me, it's always weird, by the way. I'll take an aside. Qatar, I hate that because I think there should be a U after the Q. Because when I was a kid, there always has to be a U after the Q. It's like, what the hell is this going on here? But I guess they lost a U. Have wiped out 17% of Qatar's liquid natural gas capability for up to 5 years, estimated in 20 billion in lost annual revenues. So yeah, they're not really happy. And again, they were like, where were you, America? You're supposed to have these missiles to protect us. You get fucking around with Israel and we're paying the price. So Qatar is not happy. They're a Gulf state. And this is just not Qatar. It's another Gulf state here. The United Arab Emirates announced this gas production is now zero, and operations at all major natural gas facilities have been suspended. You have to do that because when you pump oil, you got to put it somewhere. And typically you put it in storage facilities. And then tankers take it out of the storage facilities and they go somewhere to a refinery and it's made into diesel or gasoline or asphalt or whatever, right? Fertilizer in some cases. But if you can't get your tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, then everything backs up and you got to stop production because you have nowhere to put the oil. So you're going to pump the oil where you're going to put it. Your storage facilities are full. Your storage facilities are full because there's no tankers there. You have tankers there, but they're full and they can't leave. So this is a problem that's happening right now. And so this is a major issue. The major thing here. All right, some more of the Trump data, polling data. Let's take a look at this. MAGA might be on board with the Iran war. Well, that's a definitional thing. MAGA means you support Trump no matter what he does. And that's what it means to be MAGA. Because if you disagree with Trump with anything, by definition, you're not MAGA. So again, yeah. But none of all the Trump's bases. We got a new poll from Yahoo YouGov. 24% of 2024 Trump voters disapprove of Trump on Iran. I guess I'm in that category. And 17% of Republicans disapprove. So these aren't MAGA people. And there's a strong approval is under 50% for both groups. And if you look at the numbers, he's doing really horrible with young people. Again, it's mostly old boomers, Fox News types that are supporting this war. That's about it right now. And then it gets worse if he's talking about boots on the ground, which they promised us there wouldn't be such a thing. Then they backed off on that. Support for boots on the ground, 68% oppose, 26% support. Even among Republicans, the majority oppose because firing missiles is there's not much risk, but once you get people on the ground, that's when you start to get mass casualties. because it's not a lot of risk if you're sitting on a ship and you shoot off a Tomahawk missile, it's pretty safe. But trying to be on the ground in the Marines, that's when you can be killed. And so there's not much appetite for that. But the problem is there's really no way to win this war unless for magically Iran should collapse and we get, let's say, a gay Jewish guy that loves Israel. If that doesn't happen, which it probably won't, you have to send in troops. And it depends what you want. If you want to send in troops to take all of Iran and to occupy it, you probably need 1 million. So we need a draft. If you want the Strait of Hormuz, I don't think 5,000 is enough, but I think Trump may be desperate enough to try it with 5,000. And that could be a total epic blunder and lots of people, a lot of Marines killed in that. So, but that's the only options. And Netanyahu's saying we're going to need troops on the ground, boots on the ground. And Netanyahu seems to be calling the shots. So that is the case here. As I talked about earlier, but I just show you this about how Trump is trying to deal with the Iranians oil situation. Not only are we not sinking their tankers, we're saying that we've removed the sanctions on Iran. Because remember, we have sanctions against buying oil from Iran and Russia. And because we're worried about the supply, we removed the sanctions from Russia and now from Iran. So the Iranians are free to take their oil through the Strait of Hormuz and sell it. We're not going to do anything about it because Trump doesn't want the oil prices to go up higher because he knows that could be a big issue there. All right. There's some more reporting that Trump, despite what they say, is desperate to try to end the war. There are continued rumors that Trump is desperately seeking a secret off-ramp with Iran, but Iran no longer has ears for negotiations. They're ghosting us. And they're just saying they're going to continue the war until they get what they want. They want American bases out of there. So part of the Iranian problem is they would be okay with stopping this war if they could. For example, if they trusted us and we promised not to attack them in the future, they would be okay with that. But they know our word doesn't mean anything because we keep backstabbing them. We've done that a couple times. So how can they guarantee 6 months from now we'll just start this over again? So that's why they want us out of the bases in the Middle East. So it's a tough situation right now. And let's take a look at this. Joe Kent was talking about some of this as I was talking about.
Ali Laranjani.
Ali Laranjani, he was the guy that's like, I think a foreign minister or head of the security. He was a moderate, and the Israelis, they murdered him, I think yesterday or 2 days ago.
Who was a negotiator, who was eager to get us a deal. Again, look, I've got no love for the IRGC. I've got no love for the Iranians. But you've got to realize,
just to be clear,
if you want it to end,
in case you're treating it now, you fought their proxies.
I fought their proxies. I mean, I put countless of them in flex cuffs or much worse. I've gone after the Iranians. I was in specialized outfits that went after the Iranians and their proxies. These are very serious people. They're not supermen by any means. They're humans, but they're serious. And if you give the IRGC a reason to take more control and they get support from the people, because again, you kill off the Ayatollah, they can say, hey, the last guy was too moderate. Look at what it got us. Like, give us more control.
I get it.
And the Iranian people are going to be like, well, actually, yeah, I don't like getting bombed by the Americans and the Israelis. Maybe we do need to listen to the IRGC.
So a lot.
The IRGC is the Revolutionary Guard. They are kind of the elite troops of Iran. Kind of think of them like the SS of Nazi Germany. But they have a lot of influence in the government.
A lot of these, the points that you're making, I think are insightful, but they're also pretty obvious if you kind of game it out for 10 seconds. Yeah. So it seems like you've got two different goals. You've described Israel's goal as just regime change, permanent chaos, take Iran off the map as a coherent nation state, just tie them up with internal chaos, whatever the effects of that are on the rest of the world, all of them disastrous. Then on the American side, you have the president's stated goal, which is we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon, which they didn't have and weren't trying to build in any imminent way.
Right.
Okay. So if you join those two together in a common mission in a war, like that's our partner in this war,
Yeah.
then you create all kinds of very bad incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing here, because Netanyahu and Israel, they don't want to stop of this war until the Iranian government is totally replaced with a puppet controlled by Israel. That's their goal. And Trump stopping, they will freak out about. They will just, and I guarantee you, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, all these guys that are kissing Trump's ass now, they will stab him in the back if he tries to stop before Iran is totally defeated. So they want this to continue on. And that's why Israel, they knew probably Trump didn't want them to bomb that oil or natural gas field, but they did it anyway because they want to escalate things. And so it's going to be, as long as we're tied to Israel, it's going to be tough for Trump to exit this war.
And now Larijani, I think, was killed by the Israelis. You saw the Israelis blow up Qatari natural gas facilities today in the Qatari natural gas field, which feeds the rest of the world LNG. Those seem like very obvious steps, not to minimize the threat from Iran, but to lock
That are killed.
Yeah. So yeah, that was, I mean, Israel definitely has a different goal in this. So, and people are really realizing this. This isn't a conspiracy anymore. And even people that are kind of cucks. Here, let's look at Piers Morgan.
Prize, Israel has pressed successive U.S. presidents to join the war, often, as Antony Blinken revealed, by threatening to strike first if necessary. It's no surprise that Israelis support the war overwhelmingly. But what is missing in all of this is a clear and consistent case for why any of these benefits are of equal interest to Israel's partner in this war, the United States.
See, this is the problem, is we should be an independent country, and our president and our leaders should look at everything at what's in the best interest of America, not any other country. It doesn't mean we're adversaries with other countries or we don't want to help out other countries, but the final analysis should be what is best for America. But the problem we have is that lady that was on the religious panel said, we're an occupied country. Our politicians are owned by Israel. And they look at first what's best for Israel. What's best for America, they don't really think about.
President Trump has reneged on his pro-peace pledges and taught some of his closest supporters to launch an unpopular and expensive war on the eve of elections, which could condemn him to lame duck irrelevance. And his most prominent cheerleaders, Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz, to Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham, are the most avowedly pro-Israel commentators who have all called themselves never Trumpers in the past. It's not necessarily conspiratorial to make this war all about Israel. The war's supporters have made it literally all about Israel. And this week, Mark Levin said his critics are just as evil as Nazis.
Is giving aid and comfort, propaganda to the enemy, as are individuals who I call the woke right neo-fascists, who are stirring the anti-Semitism pot, who are stirring the trash Christian pot. They are no different than the same voices we heard in the 1930s, and just as disgusting, evil, and reprehensible.
Pretty ridiculous to compare the right-wing commentators right now to Nazis. Joe Kent, who resigned as Trump's counterterrorism chief over a war he said was at the behest of the Israeli lobby, has been condemned as a neo-Nazi, Jew-hating Israel basher. Well, I've personally been accused of attacking or prize.
Yeah, and Piers Morgan has been accused of the same thing too. So the lobby, they have no subtlety anymore. They used to be years ago a lot more sophisticated. Now they've just torn off their mask. You got to do exactly what they want. If you don't do exactly what they want, they call you an evil neo-Nazi that deserves to die. That's their position. It's just really crazy. These people do not belong in America. They don't have any interest in America. Their only interest in America is what they can loot from this country to give to their ethnic homeland. That's it. Now, otherwise, I don't give a shit. So there is no, there is nothing there that can happen there. It is just crazy. And as you can see here, as you guys probably saw this here, and let me show you. So Joe Kent's resignation over Iran war ignites anti-Semitism fears and debate over Israeli influence. So if you oppose any war that Israel wants us to fight for them, you're an anti-Semite, and that means you're a Nazi, and that means you deserve to be killed. This is their logic. And I don't see how we can share common ground with such people. And obviously, they're not interested in America. They're just interested in using these slurs to try to get what they want. And it's disgusting. All right, let's just see here. Catch up on some. I'll be ending pretty soon. Hey, I didn't have to go to the restroom tonight. Take a look at that. Randall Flagg, watching Tucker's interview with Joe Kent last night, Tucker himself is unreliable and shifts stance often and is possibly CIA connected. But Joe Kent is flat out lying in part of his interview. Okay, thanks for that. Rowhouse, Rams, it's just not the war. Look at other issues Trump has abandoned his base on. Oh, yeah, that was Trump has privately told his inner circle that some of his administration's deportation policies have gone too far. I showed that earlier, Rowhouse. So thank you, though, for that. Yeah, he's abandoned the whole immigration thing. It's just really crazy. So I just supported Trump because of his positions. If he abandons those positions, I don't feel some loyalty to continue to support him. Again, I'm not about being a cult member. That's just not my thing. And okay, I just want to go make sure I got everything here. All right, I think I got everything. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll have some fun tomorrow's Friday. And thank you guys for being here again. I really do appreciate it. I enjoy these streams. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.